Right, good morning everybody. Welcome to the Greater Manchester Transport Committee Bus Services Subcommittee. Can I ask members if they don't mind turning their cameras and mics off, and then if they've got any comments to make, if they'd just signal to me in the chat box, and then we'll pick it up from there. Item 1 this morning is apologies for absence, and I know that Sean Fielding sent his late apologies. He has to appear at a scrutiny committee. Are there any other apologies for absence?
None that I'm aware of, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Item 2 is Chair's announcements. I've only got two announcements to make. The first one is that there is now a meeting of the Greater Manchester Transport Committee on Wednesday the 24th of March at 10:30. So I hope all members have got that in their diaries. The second comment was, Alison, are you there, Alison? Can you
I'm here, yes. Hi, Chair.
I've heard it's your last day at TFGM before you go on maternity leave, so I think all committee members just want to wish you good luck and best wishes.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Okay, Alison. Moving on, item 3 is declarations of interest. There is a form for members to fill in if you've got any declaration of interest. Item 4 is minutes of the meeting held on the 15th of January. And just to remind members, we did raise on those minutes the issue about contactless payments, and TFGM have since sent an email to all members of the committee, which I hope you received. Let us know if you haven't got that, and we'll make sure you get a copy. Is everybody happy that the minutes are a true and correct record? Everybody happy with that?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Item 5 is the update from the bus operators. Now, I had an email from Nigel of Go Northwest last night because, as you know, there is a dispute industrial action taking place with Go Northwest. So if Nigel's on the call, I think he is, I thought I'll take Nigel last and then
Sorry,
just
Chair,
ask us. Sorry?
Sorry, Chair, Nigel's not on just yet. Just bear with me.
Oh, okay. We'll just pause for a second.
You might want to start with the other operators. I'm just trying to get him access to the meeting, if that's okay.
Well, I think it'd help if bus operators could introduce themselves one at a time, and then obviously say what's been going on since our last meeting, really.
Okay, do you want me to go first? It's Alistair Nuttall from Arriva. Good morning, everybody. We at Arriva, we're now running around 80%, 80 to 85% of our pre-COVID service levels. We're carried, as of this week, passenger numbers certainly on the Bolton operations are up at about 50% of where they were pre-COVID. Our South Manchester operation, it's a bit lower than that. It's around 43%. Obviously, schools going back this week has made a difference. Sorry, apologies. Schools going back has made a difference for us, although it does seem to be a bit patchy with the schools that we cover as to how many pupils are actually going in. Maybe perhaps when we get maybe even beyond the Easter holiday, it might get a better idea. The concern we've got going forward is the number of driving staff that we've now got off who have been designated as clinically extremely vulnerable. Certainly in our Bolton depot, with 10 or 11% of the driving staff group who are out of the workplace. And there's quite a large number of those have received sort of the clinical extremely vulnerable notifications in the latest round. So really that started the back end of February. Now, the concern we have is that if those drivers are not available to come back into the workplace anytime soon, then we're not going to be in a position to increase our service levels any further, simply because we won't have the staff to do it. But obviously, until we know there's more certainty around the staff who are clinically extremely vulnerable as to when they may be able to return to the workplace, we can't really go any further with that. I think that pretty much covers it off at the minute.
Alistair, before you go off, just give me those passenger numbers again, the passenger numbers you're experiencing on, day to day.
Yeah, okay. So for the services that we run out of Bolton Depot, as of yesterday, it was at 50% of pre-COVID, and that's gone up steadily, so probably over the last 2 weeks, actually, not just the last week, not just this week. South Manchester's around 43%.
Right, okay. Thanks for that.
No problem.
We'll move on. Ben, I think you're next.
Hi, thank you, Chair. Good morning, all. If I just give you a brief update from the Stagecoach viewpoint, I'll pick up from where we were in January. Obviously, we had the third lockdown commence in January, and as a result, we saw patronage drop off to around 30% of normal. That's carried on through, increasing a little bit, until we got to this week, when obviously we've seen the schools return. In line with the DfT guidance, we did reduce service level to about 80% of normal mileage in January, and then as of this Monday, we've increased that again now on the Monday to Fridays because the schools have returned. So we're into the 90% again now. We are expecting to go up again in April, and this is in line with the government roadmap. So from the middle of April, the normal service change date, most services will indeed be back to normal, and 100% of services should be operating. Like Arriva, we have suffered a little bit with staff. We've got a reasonable proportion shielding, but it's not impacted at all on service delivery, and we think we can cope with it as we go through into the summer. In terms of service performance, punctuality remains very good, although we have seen increase in traffic levels, particularly this week. So we have seen a slight dip, but we're still well into the 90s, which is very good and much better than we saw pre-COVID in terms of punctuality levels. Overall, I don't think we foresee any issues going forward into the summer. I think as we emerge from lockdown, there may just be a little bit of pressure on capacity before hopefully we get some relief on social distancing requirements on vehicles. So that's possibly something to look out for, and we'll keep an eye on our services and keep reviewing them and possibly adding extra odd trips if we are getting some pressure on capacity. And that was it from us. Thank you, Chair.
OK, Ben, just before you go off, are you surprised by the passenger numbers this week? Is that surprising you, or is it what you expected?
It's very much exactly what we expected, Chair. It's very similar to the numbers we saw in November when we went into lockdown 2. It's very much similar restrictions in place with shops closed primarily apart from essential shops, and with schools in. So it's very similar numbers in the low 40%. We've got sufficient service in place to cover that for the moment. And then, as I say, we'll go up again in April, and we should have sufficient for that. OK, thanks,
Ben. Next one, I think I've got Ian Humphreys from First. Are you there, Ian?
Yes, morning, Chair. Similar situation to other operators. I think in the low point of the lockdown, we went down to about 30% patronage, not quite as low as it was in the lockdown sort of 12 months ago. We've seen the surge this week with the schools going back, so we're probably just over the 40% mark now. Quite a surge last Monday. In terms of service levels, we didn't put any extras in from this week other than those directly associated with schools, and it seems to have worked. So we're still around the sort of 80% mark, and we'll probably change again in April. Staffing wise, no problems. We've been very lucky this time. We've had very few staff off, so no particular impact there. Not much else to report, Chair.
Ian, can I just ask you, because you're running the Vantage service, is that service passenger numbers similar to other bus services, or is it any different?
Proportionally to other services, it's probably a bit it's lower. The impact, I guess, on the sort of the high volumes of commuters that used Vantage has been probably more significant than it has been on some of the other parts of our network, particularly in Oldham, where you've got higher numbers of key workers. So it has suffered a bit more of a reduction than the rest of the network.
Okay, thanks, Ian. Nigel, just to say, I'll come to you last if that's all right with you. I said that, but you weren't on when I said it, so I'll come to you at the end, because we want more reporting on the effects of the industrial action and so on. What I've got now, I've got Leslie. Is Leslie there?
Hi, Chair.
Yeah.
Similar to all the other operators, obviously we're a smaller operation. We've seen a slight increase in numbers this week, particularly on the busy days that we had before. Thursdays and Fridays tend to be quite higher numbers. We've had a slow start with the school earlier in the week. We only had 2 going in, but gradually as the week's gone, more pupils have returned, and similar to the other operators, we expect perhaps after Easter that hopefully will pick up a bit more as well.
Okay, thanks, Leslie. Matthew? Put your mic on, Matthew. Can't hear you. Are you there?
Morning, Chair. Yeah, sorry about that. Just a quick update. Yeah, school buses went back in this week with no issues. We're still running 80% of our mileage as we were pre the changes. We've seen the odd report from drivers of full bus information, which we monitor daily, and with some duplicate services out there at the minute on service 163 down Rochdale Road, due to issues with other operators' services, to make sure we have no issues on that corridor. Passenger numbers continue to climb, and we're monitoring that as we go. We expect to uplift again in April, aligned to a normal change date and changes to tendered services. Other than that, nothing else to share.
Okay, lovely. Thanks, Matthew. Are there any other bus operators apart from Nigel of Go North West? Is there any other bus operators who want to comment? Okay, Nigel, Go North West, over to you.
Morning, everybody. As will be widely known, Unite have called a strike amongst their drivers. So we have a considerable number of drivers unavailable to us at the moment. We're conscious that, especially during the pandemic, lots of people rely on our services. We serve 4 key hospitals, the Etihad Vaccination Centre, countless GP surgeries. So using the drivers that are continuing to work and a network of subcontractors, we are continuing to operate a comprehensive service, which we estimate to be carrying more than 100,000 passengers a week. Our small operators, subcontractors who've stepped in to assist, are all COVID secure. All the buses are fully wheelchair accessible. They're all subject to the scrutiny of the DVSA. So the standards are good. And it's been well received by customers. I guess moving from us operating to a total of 11 different subcontractors was never going to be absolutely seamless, but under the circumstances, I think the number of issues that we've had is very, very small. So we can keep that up. We can keep services running to keep things nice and easy, because the replacement buses don't have our ticket machines on. We're just calling it a £1 flat fare at the moment, but all passes that would normally be accepted are continuing to be accepted. In terms of how long this will persist, obviously our first priority was the customer and to make sure the services are operating. Our second priority, equal to that, is to bring the dispute to a closure as quickly as possible. And I don't really want to get into the ins and outs of the dispute, but to reassure, we are working intensively with ACAS to try to bring the matter to a close, and we are available on a 24/7 basis.
Okay, thanks, Nigel. Okay, thanks. Do any members of the committee have any comments, please?
Do you mean generally, Chairman? Do you mean generally on the report?
Yes, on the report you've heard, yeah.
Not on the details of the dispute. Can I say one thing? With Bury interchange, if I can speak on that, with the change in buses, and I do appreciate the service continuing with different coloured buses from Liverpool and all over the place, and other changes from other companies, some of them, to times, there's nothing really to tell you what's happening. And this contrasts with a disembodied voice that quite frightens people about telling them every few minutes not to use the bus, to wash their hands, etc., etc. It is quite startling, I assure you, as a regular user of that interchange. And I think, why don't we have a voice as well, if you like, telling people of changes to the bus service, or even small notices on the relevant stops, like the 98 and so on. There doesn't seem to be anything to tell you there what's happening, and people are very, very confused. I'll leave it at that for now. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments from members of the committee? Okay. Anything else, Nigel? Can you hear me, Nigel? Have you got any other comments to make?
Yes, thank you, Roger. No, I can hear you. Yes, no, that's covered it. Thank you.
Okay.
I noted about the Bury interchange.
Okay, thanks. So thanks to all the bus operators for the update. We'll move on the agenda now. Item 6 is Ring and Ride Performance Report, and I think Nick Roberts is covering this. Nick?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone's well. James is going to pick up on the forthcoming report, but we thought we'd just forthcoming changes report, but we thought we'd just give you an update on Ring and Ride. We know this is a service that is of interest to members, so a short report. Like everyone else, this is a service that has suffered as a result of COVID, and probably more than most because of the client group that it moves. As you can see, as we go through the report, it did kind of peak a little bit when we came out of COVID, but only, as it says in 3.3, to a level of recovery of 22%, and never really has recovered to levels beyond that. So it has suffered greatly. As you can see, when we mentioned in section 3.4, we've relaxed a little bit in terms of some of the conditions when we had the vaccinations, by allowing people with concessionary passes and extending some of our criteria on distance to benefit from people going to vaccination centres, which I think members have commented they appreciated. But ultimately it has suffered, and going forward, as the report kind of highlights, I mean, it's fairly self-explanatory. The year has been difficult for the service, and when you're comparing the figures, the people we've moved, comparing year on year, numbers have been low, drivers have furloughed, and it's been a difficult year for the service. So I think very much going forward, I mean, the figures are there when you look through the year. I mean, I suppose the one positive is the budget. The budget has not been fully used, but I think the focus, and this is where I'm interested probably in feedback and thoughts from the committee, is what recovery is going to look like for the service, and what we think is going to be the focus on users. We're very much speaking to Ring and Ride and focusing on that roadmap from government now. Do we think this is going to be a service whereby the clients are really going to want to when we come out of lockdown really make the use of the service, or are they going to be apprehensive going out? Is it going to be a service when we've really got to promote Ring and Ride and really promote the service and really encourage the safety of all maybe forms of transport, particularly Ring and Ride, because this might be a nervous client group, encouraging them to get back and use the service. So there's got to be a lot of focus on on the publicity of the service? Is it going to be a service group that maybe have changed their way of using it, maybe have used sort of internet shopping, and maybe their changes of movement have changed a little bit over the past 12 months. So I'm interested in thoughts from the committee of how Ring and Ride is changing and how this client group has changed going forward. So there's a lot of work to be done with GMATL going forward. So there is a lot of work being done with the business to think about what recovery might look like as we come out of lockdown. It is important to us, and we've got a lot of invested interest in how the model goes forward. So a very brief presentation, Chair. I am interested in committee members' thoughts on what Ring and Ride might look like going forward, and I welcome thoughts from committee members. Thank you, Councillor Jones.
Okay, thanks, Nick. Any comments or questions on this report? John Leach, I think you had a comment.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, it was just in response to Nick's question about what we thought. Really, my instinct is that it will take a lot longer for this service to recover than normal bus services. I do think, just anecdotally, from speaking to people who make use of Ring or have made use of Ring and Ride in the past, they do tend to be people who probably feel most anxious about getting back out and about again. So I would have thought it's going to be a much slower process for recovery for Ring and Ride. But I just wondered whether, because the report talks about the number of vehicles that we have, and clearly the number of vehicles that we have available are significantly more than are currently required, and probably are going to be currently required for some considerable time. I just wondered whether any consideration had been given to somehow mothballing some of them. I don't know whether that is a possibility, but it just seems to me it looks as though this is going to be one of those services that is going to take a long time to get back up to pre-COVID levels. And my other question was whether or not there was any scope for applying for any funding from government to support the much slower process for recovery, given that, yeah, I don't think anyone ever realistically believed that the government was going to cover all the costs of COVID to local governments, but this is going to be a big cost for a long time, I would have thought.
Okay, thanks, John. Any other members of the committee who want to comment or ask questions? Okay, I can't see anything in the chat box.
You've just got Councillor Miller, Chair.
Yeah, sorry, David Mellor. David?
Thanks, Chair. Sorry, I was a bit late there. No, I think just the point that Nick made, really, just on looking at the recovery of Ring and Ride. Obviously, it links in, I guess, to the recovery of all public transport services as a whole within Greater Manchester as we come out of lockdown, I suppose, and encouraging people to get back onto public transport and feel safe in doing so. I guess really it links in to I guess not just the future of the bus network, I guess, in Greater Manchester, but obviously there's a national question here in terms of the national bus strategy, I suppose, and how that's going to support recovery as well. So again, I just wanted to make that point again, because I've made it a few times, I guess, within the committee, that I guess going forward we need to make sure that we've got a strategy in place that will try and support as many people as possible feeling safe enough to get back onto public transport and get back onto the bus network, and obviously Ring and Ride is a particularly I guess sensitive service to this with the clientele that obviously uses it. So I just wanted to make that general point.
Okay, thanks, David. I could hear you until the very end then. You seemed to drift off. I don't know what happened. Nick, did you catch that?
I didn't quite catch the last bit, but just picking up on both those points, which were appreciated. Yeah, I mean, I think there's mixed opinions on what the recovery will be like with this particular area, and it's something to monitor. In terms of the vehicle point, I think it's very valid from Councillor Leach. If you recall, we were looking to procure some new vehicles to strengthen the fleet, which was depleted, but we put that on hold. So that whole procurement piece about bringing some new up-to-date vehicles was totally put on hold. So that has to be totally reviewed. So that whole exercise of whether we need to strengthen the vehicles, whether we get the new fleet in, the size of the vehicles, is something that has to be totally reconsidered. Do we need as many vehicles going forward? So I think there's a whole reassessment and modelling that is ongoing with Ring and Ride that has to be reconsidered as a result of what's happening, together with the forecasted demand. But again, ongoing, I really recognise and welcome any anecdotal feedback that you get from local users as we go on going forward. I think it will be interesting. So as always, any input we get from yourselves, we welcome that going forward, and we'll build that into the analysis. And likewise, Chair, we'll bring something back maybe in a couple of months' time to the committee on how things develop.
Yeah, Nick, just out of interest, yesterday I was on a Travel Watch conference to do with rail, and Northern and TransPennine were both speaking at the conference, and it was interesting to hear what they said about passenger numbers, because they were anticipating getting back to pre-COVID levels after 4 years. That's what they said, and that really surprised me. And when I say pre-COVID levels, they were looking at sort of 95%, not 100%, because they think obviously there's been a change, or there's likely to be a change in the future from people working from home and all the rest of it. So later this year, they will be engaging in a huge publicity campaign to attract more passengers back to the railways. So if you come back to obviously bus operators, and now we're talking about Ring and Ride, I think, you know, the comments that members have made are quite right, in the sense that this is predominantly an LD and disabled person service, and they are the ones who probably are the most worried or scared by you know, the virus for obvious reasons. So it's going to take some time before we can you know, get back to how we were before COVID. But I've got a meeting of the trustees of Ring and Ride after this meeting, and I will raise those comments that yourself and David Mellor and John Leach have made, because we are going to have to look at all those issues. Okay, so if there's no other comments or questions from members, I can't see anything in the chat box. So can I ask committee members to note this report, and obviously we'll report back in a few months' time on Ring and Ride and how things are developing. Okay, thanks, Nick. Okay, item 7 is the forthcoming changes to the bus network, and James, I think you're going to take us through the report.
That's right. Good morning, Chair. I trust you well. Yes. It's a relatively short report for this meeting, Chair. And what I'll do is run through the respective annexes and take any queries in turn, if that suits. So in terms of Annex A, very little to report in terms of commercial changes at this stage. As members will see, a couple of changes on Rochdale Road. Welcome addition of a journey from Middleton to Stake Hill Industrial Estate, which is obviously a key employment location. In addition to what's reported, Chair, we also had a late notification of a commercial change for a cross-boundary service. Members will be familiar with the 130 service from Macclesfield via Wilmslow to Handforth, operated by D&G buses, and this is to be extended Monday, Friday daytime only to the airport and Withenshaw Hospital. It was unfortunately too late to meet the deadline to get into the report, but the implications within the county are not significant. We will, of course, be able to provide further information subsequently.
Okay, thanks for that. I think Phil Burke has got a comment. Phil? Oh. Are you there, Phil? I can't see or hear you at the moment.
He seems to have dropped out of the meeting, Chair, so I'll just find out his comment and then I'll report it on his behalf. Okay,
thanks, Nicola. Are there any other comments or questions from members of the committee? I can't see anything. I must admit there's a few technical problems. I've noticed Councillor Evans is with us now. I think Councillor Evans was struggling earlier. We'll just have a pause just for a few seconds and then I'll move on. Right, well, I'm not hearing anything back. So let's go through the recommendations that are before the committee. First recommendation is to note and comment on the changes to the commercial network and the proposals not to replace the deregistered commercial services as set out in Annex A. Are committee members happy with that? Is that okay? Okay, and the same, you know, that James has gone through, that no action is taken on Annex A. So can we move on to Annex B and C?
Thank you, Chair. For this report, we have no items for Annex B. Right. So turning immediately to Annex C, there are a few points of note here. The first one is recommended changes to services in the Standish area, which affect one of the cross-boundary services operated by Stagecoach Lancashire into Wigan, and also services 640, 641, which are supported by TFGM. The changes to these services, Chair, follow previous discussions with local ward members who had expressed concerns of accessibility in the local area, and it's the intention that these recommendations will address those concerns. The second point I'd highlight, Chair, is the recommended withdrawal of Bolton Metro Shuttle. This withdrawal was originally instigated by Bolton NBC, and TFGM officers have been in close discussion with Bolton NBC officers to review the performance of the service over recent years. Indeed, it's frequently been subject to annual reviews, and a lot of details given in the report. And the other point I'd highlight to members is the recommended withdrawal of the Logistics North local link service. For context, the service has been running for some time now, and obviously Logistics North is a large and rapidly expanding employment location in the Bolton area, but also relevant to surrounding areas. And members will be aware from previous reports that significant changes have been made to bus services in that area, including changes to Service 20 and also the changes coming forward to Service 521 in April, which will significantly improve local bus connectivity into that site. I think this is very much a work in progress, Chair. We're very well aware of the importance of this location within the county, and we are going to undertake to continue to monitor demand in conjunction with colleagues in the district, and indeed the travel plan coordinators at the site. And as part of this, some additional promotional information has been put online, so that employees of the Logistics North businesses do have good visibility of the travel opportunities available to them going forward. Just finally, Chair, not listed in the report at this stage, there are a couple of changes, additional changes likely to be made to support services in the Bolton area, which are in response to some commercial adjustments coming forward. none of these have any budget implications or would involve any service reductions. And once these have been clarified, we will be in a position to brief local members appropriately. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, James. I think we've still lost Councillor Phil Burke. I can see Councillor Stoyers with us now. She's had some problems. And I think, Warren, you wanted to comment on this.
Yeah, it's not so much on the report as something that James has just said regarding local link. Some time ago, when we were discussing local link services and ring and ride, and the officers promised us a review of all those services to see whether it was the committee's wish to continue with some of them, and we've never had that review. And I just wondered, has it been shelved because of COVID, or is it going to come back to committee at some future date?
Okay, thanks, Warren. I'll bring John Leach in as well. I think John's got a point.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, it was actually about the Bolton Metro Shuttle. Just reading the reports, it appears that it's not COVID related. This decision, this is due to historic year-on-year decline in the service. I just wondered why the decision was being taken now, and is this just a budget decision by Bolton Council, or is this a delayed decision that perhaps was intended to be made 12 months ago?
I must admit, I was surprised by it as well. Before I ask you to come back, James, let me just check there's no other members who want to comment. Nicola, have you got Phil Burke's comment?
I've got Phil on speakerphone, Chair, so I'm just going to put him near my screen so he can raise his comment. Go on, Phil.
Cheers, thanks, Chair. It's just a quick comment, if I can. We'd like to thank Michael Moore for the advance notification for all the changes in the Rochdale area and the conversation we had. The only issue we'd like to raise is, and to mention, is the number 18 bus. Please could we ask the operator if the first and last bus could tie in with shift workers from Manchester Royal Infirmary, who I understand there's a lot of shift workers using the bus to get back into Manchester or back into North Manchester. But otherwise, we're happy with, and we fully support the changes in Rochdale. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Phil. Any other members who want to comment on this item before I bring James back in? Okay, James.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Regarding the first point made about local link and ring and ride, I wasn't personally aware of the undertaking to give that report. I think what it's fair to say is that going forward, we are now constantly monitoring the recovery of the network. And as part of that, we are going to have to reappraise the respective roles of the individual modes. And this is certainly in terms of the ongoing accessibility review, and also in terms of passenger recovery and the nature of demand we see going forward. So I certainly see this as absolutely relevant and something to be picked up as part of our ongoing review and monitoring of the network as it goes into the recovery phase.
Yeah.
So in terms of Bolton Metro Shuttle, obviously I can't speak in detail for Bolton MBC on this matter, but as I alluded to in my introduction, this service has been reviewed on a periodic basis, usually subject to an annual review. And I think the fundamental point to me here is that there have been a lot of changes in Bolton town centre in recent years, particularly in relation to the moving of the old bus station and the development of the new interchange. So the nature of movement within the town centre has inevitably changed considerably. And I think to me, the key thing here is that no earlier changes were made to that service. And I suppose it was a case of keeping the usage of it under review, pending a better understanding of how movement was responding following the changes in the town centre.
Okay, James, the comment from Warren Bray is whether we think a review of all demand-led services should take place, you know, in a few months' time. What do you think on that?
Well, I'm happy to bring Nick Robertson on this as well, but in principle, as part of a wider review, an ongoing review, I see no reason why that should be a difficulty.
Okay, Nick, do you want to comment?
Yeah, I've just put something in the chat, Chair. I think maybe this is tied in with the bigger accessibility review that we're doing. We've talked a lot about that in the past, where we're doing a review of Rig and Ride. We've touched on that already, but also all the demand responsive services, which I think is what Councillor Bray is referring to. So local link and all the demand responsive services, probably in wider community transport services as well. That's certainly on our plan. It's been on our plan for a while. We've submitted that as part of our project proposals. It's a complex, because you could argue it includes social services transport and includes health transport as well. So it's how big you want to make that project, whether it's particularly defined to local link. You know, it's a big scope. So I think we've got to define on how much we can achieve and how quickly we can achieve it and what the resources are around that. But I think from my point of view, certainly local link is a key area, because I think as has been touched on by this proposal, and I know Councillor Bray has raised it before, is it an efficient mode in which to deliver in local areas? And I think that's been questioned before by the committee. So I think that's kind of where we've been umming and ahhing about that particular area of work. Would that be fair to say, Councillor Bray?
I don't know.
Yeah, I keep forgetting where the mute button is. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
I can't understand why you're surprised, because officers have discussed this before at meetings about demand-led services and a review, and particularly a local link. But also at the time, I remember somebody threw in Ring and Ride as well and said we should review that as well. But I'm happy with response from officers. Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Stoyer, I know you've had a job getting through, so are you there?
Yes, Chair, thank you. Just wanted a very quick, I wanted to ask a very quick question, if I may. So the paper on page 16, Ring and Ride under recovery, it says, this is a question about the next sort of few months as the pandemic recedes and as people are allowed to go out more. So as restrictions are eased, 6.2 paragraph says that passengers may feel more confident to travel from early March. I think that the vaccination will support more people to go out to feel more confident to travel. However, what I really would like to know is what are the bus operators doing in order to tell people that this service is safe and encourage more people to use it. So kind of like works both ways. One is doing as much as we can with the vaccination, and in Greater Manchester we're doing really, really well. However, what I want to know is what are the bus companies, what are our operators of Ring and Ride doing to tell potential users that our buses are safe, we wash them, there is available space, we disinfect, or what are they doing to encourage more people to take up the offer? I'm sorry if you covered that already.
No, we have partly covered it, but what I'll do is I'll bring in the bus operators who are with us in a few minutes, but I just want to deal with Annex C first, and then I'll ask the bus operators if they want to comment on that point from Councillor Stoyer. So James, just finishing off on Annex C, have you any further comments to make?
No, I think that's fine for me, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, nothing else on Annex C. So we've already dealt with Annex A, and just to say that we're approving the changes to the general subsidised services as set out in Annex C. Are members happy with that? Is that agreed? Okay, thank you. Coming back to the bus operators, is any of the bus operators willing to just comment on the point that Councillor Stoyer's just made in terms of future passenger demand and safety? Is anybody there?
Hi,
Ben,
Chair.
yes, Ben, if you could comment, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just very briefly, we're well aware that you know, we've been through over a year now of encouraging people not to use the bus. So we certainly want to reverse that message as we come out of the restrictions. Part of the funding package and where that goes to in terms of how we funded through the recovery, a big part of that includes work with the DfT on changing the messaging around using public transport. So a lot of that messaging will encompass things on reassurance to reassure people that bus is safe, is clean, and as part of that work we'll be doing, you know, lots of campaigns on what we're doing to ensure people's safety when using our services. So there is some ongoing work in the background, and that will become a lot more prevalent as the restrictions ease and we're able to promote our services again.
Yeah, you heard what I said earlier about the rail operators and the fact they're going to launch a huge campaign later this year to attract more passengers back to railways. Is that what you think all the bus operators need to do now?
Yes, Chair, I think certainly we do need to do something, and I'm aware there's ongoing discussions with the CPT, the Confederation of Passenger Transport, and the DfT about how to bring all that together in a concise message that the entire industry is pushing forward. So there is work underway on that. I'm not abreast of the full details of that at the moment, but certainly things will be moving in the next few months as the restrictions lift.
Have the government said anything to you yet about the funding of bus services, or is that too early?
We're still waiting for that. We're hoping to receive something in the next few weeks. So perhaps at the next meeting we could discuss that further.
Okay, thanks. Ian Humphreys. Ian, can I just ask you the same question about one really about the marketing of services and the safety of passengers, and the other one, you know, any information on government funding?
Thank you, Chair. I mean, in terms of safety, we've had sort of rigid procedures in place all the way through, which we're still maintaining around the extra cleanliness, and we do, you know, make that point clearly in what we say. As Ben has said, there's been a difficult conversation sometimes with the government, the DfT, about how the use of public transport has been messaged, because clearly there's been an element of contradiction between please stay at home and but the bus is safe or the train is safe, whatever it is. And we constantly lobby the DfT on that, and ministers are saying they understand it and they will change the message as soon as they can. We're well aware there's a lot of pent-up demand which we want to try and serve. I think we're all waiting to see what this bus strategy says. Now the latest information I've heard is that it could be out as soon as Monday, certainly in the next few days of next week, we're told. It's not set in stone, but we think it's imminent. I think we all want to see what that says, because it'll be talking about the governance, it'll be talking about the funding, it'll be talking about the transition from the fully CBSSG funded arrangements we have now into the interim period and where the sort of the longer term takes us. And of course the strategy, I think, was planned anyway pre-COVID, so there's now a post-COVID element to it, but it was always there anyway about what the horizon was going to be for bus services. So I think we await that with interest and will react accordingly.
Okay, thanks, Ian. Roy?
Yeah, I've realised there's no any other business on the agenda, and mentioning buses and mentioning safety, this isn't aimed at the bus operators because it's, again, the interchange, but which is the responsibility of TFGM, I think I'm right in saying. I was mentioning something earlier, but the one thing noticed this week, the children, the pupils have come back, And near to our bus interchange and tram, we've 4 secondary schools and 2 colleges. And when they all come on, they're very excited. They're meeting friends. They're kicking each other. They're not wearing their masks, and they're crowding on buses. It is really problematic. There's no social distancing. They're all huddling each other, the girls and whatever, some of the boys. But what I'm saying is, I think it was the last full Transport Committee report. We had a report on safety and safety officers. And I'm just wondering if it may calm down, but for a few days, certainly around 3 o'clock or whatever, I'll take advice on that. 1 or 2 people could be there reminding them to behave and to not, hugging each other and wearing masks and not crowding on the buses. We have had a time where I know it's been limited use, perhaps 6 people spaced out, washing their hands as they get on the bus, and mainly old people. And now suddenly there's a lot of teenagers and they just take no notice whatsoever of, not all, but you know what I mean. That's the general picture. And some people, older passengers, are feeling very frightened. Anyway, the request is for some officers of some kind, safety officers, to visit Bury Interchange about 3 o'clock at that sort of time. Thank you.
Okay, well, Roy's certainly getting a plug-in for Bury Interchange. Anyway, I'll give him that. Okay, Nick, are you still there, Nick?
I am.
Yeah. Have you got any comments to make?
No, I certainly am. I know Travel Safe, they're doing various initiatives, and certainly that's something we can feed back to our colleagues.
Yeah, Travel Safe
in that area. I know they've done a few since the school term's gone back in various locations. So I know a lot of good work is being done by Kate Green and her team. So thanks for those comments. We'll certainly feed that back, and I'm sure we can see if we can do something in the Bury area.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. I think we've completed item 7. We've gone through the recommendations on Annex A and Annex C. Item 8 is to exclude the press and public. Thank everybody for joining us, but we need a private session now on the contracts that follow. Okay.
Move that, Chair.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Speak to you next time.
Thank you.